შემდეგი გამოსვლელი გევორგ ჰარუთიუნოვი ქრისტიანული მემკვიდრეობის ლიგარი, ესეთი მისი ხელმძღვანელი გახლავთ და ესეთი საინტერესო თემა შედარებითი რელიგიათმცოდნეობა აი ამ სფეროშია აბრაამიტული ტრადიციების, რელიგიათაშორისი, ურთიერთობების ეთიკური ასპექტები.
The title for this little speech has been coined before we knew that we only had 20 minutes to talk. So, aspects is a little bit optimistic. We're only going to talk about one aspect of the ethical quality in the relationship of different religions. The idea is to try to portray a picture of how do the religions relate to the other. How do they view the other? And how do we relate to the views that our religions maintain as their core value, or at least as their historic experience? And the aspect that I'm going to focus on is the aspect of power, because this shows very clearly and very manifestly the relationship and also the attitudes that we often hold. The attitude towards your own people, the attitudes to those who have become your own people, and the others that are not your people, and you have to somehow gradually build your relationship with them. And we will be looking into Judaism, Christianity, and Islam in historic consecutive sequence. And I would like to start with the concept of the Jewish people. As we all know from the Bible, the Jewish people have become such when they left Egypt. There was a whole multitude of people that has left Egypt that consisted, according to the Jewish tradition, of only 20% of the Jews that lived in Egypt. So most Jews actually stayed and never left Egypt. But many Egyptians who are not Jewish left with the Jews, and in the Torah we have the expression to denote these people. It's Erev Rav, the great multitudes. There's another meaning to Erev Rav, which I will not be mentioning, but you could look it up. It's very interesting. So, we have a notion of a people leaving a country, a people that is ethnically with variance within it, not a single joined together union of one idea, one concept. People have left because they believed in something better than they had in Egypt, but they did not necessarily have the same motivation for leaving. So many of the Erev Rav are blamed by the Jewish tradition for stirring up idolatry or worshipping the golden calf. They were the ones who initiated it, and then the Jews explained this as an attempt to worship God in previous forms. They didn't want to worship a multitude of gods or idols. They wanted to worship the one God, and the form that they were using was the one that they were used to in Egypt, in their traditional setting. By the way, there is an edition of Torah Mitzion, Torah from Zion, that is in Hebrew and Russian, with some commentary from very capable rabbis, and I would suggest that if you just went and had a look, and you might find it interesting. But look at what is happening. Actually, these people become one upon the moment when they agree to receiving the Torah from God at Sinai. The Egyptians and the Jews, or the Ivrim, there isn't a word Yehudim yet, but it's the Ivrim, the descendants of Eber and Abraham and so forth. They become together, one together with the Egyptians that were ordinary Egyptian people. However, there is a gradual hierarchy within the new people. They're not all the same. Well, first of all, they're tribes, 12 tribes. And the Levites have a different standing to the rest of the people. And that is very, very obvious. It is obvious already in Egypt when somehow a Levite family gets to send their child off in a basket to the Pharaoh's daughter. The question is, how so? How did the Pharaoh's daughter get that child, and why didn't the fate of the other children, face that particular child? So the Levites, they were special in Egypt, and they were special outside Egypt. But there's five levels of relationships within Judaism still present today. One is the Kohanim, that's the priestly caste in Judaism. Bnei Israel, or the children of Israel, or Yehudim, Jews. And that's the ordinary normative Jews. Then there is another group that is called Gerim, or the proselytes, the ones who have been of another nation but have become Jewish. And there is another one called Gerim Toshavim. And then there is the fifth dimension, and that's the Goyim. These are totally foreign. These are people that are not Jewish, neither they accept the law of Israel, and they're not treated in the same manner ethically as are the others. But the difference and the distinction between the Kohanim, the priestly caste, and the ordinary Jews, one of the manifestations of that difference is that an ordinary Jew can marry a ger, or a convert into Judaism, whereas a Kohen or a priest or anyone from that bloodline will not ever marry a ger. And of course it is completely forbidden to marry a ger toshav, or especially a goy. That's a no-no by all standards, okay? So there is another notion in the Jewish tradition, apart from halakha. We've been talking about halakha, which is the normative law of Israel, of the Jewish people. But there is another notion which is different to ordinary halakha, and it's called din malchut. And din malchut is the right of the king. I would like to point out this one very interesting occasion when a ger, who was the son of Amalekite, comes to David and says, upon the request of King Saul, I just killed him. What David does is orders his killing immediately. Well, first of all, that ger did not violate any law, because he was fulfilling the will of the king of Israel at the time. For the second, he has come to the new king of Israel and has confessed what he's done and did not expect any punishment because he acted in accordance with the law. But what David does here, he makes a moral judgment. He makes an ethical judgment. It is not based on the halakha of the ordinaries. It's a different halakha. And by that different halakha, or din malchut, the king can value intentions, evaluate. And there is a substantiated reason to allege that the intention of the Amalekite was to rejoice at the death of Saul. For many reasons. But David did not quite understand it in the same way. So that person had to die. And that was the law of God, actually interpreted and implemented by King David. The problem that Judaism has, or had, is that for at least 2,000 years there was no manifestation of Din Malchut, because there were no Malachim Israel, or no kings of Israel ever existed. There's no kingdom. And now Israel is restored as a nation, as a sovereign nation, and they have elements of Din Malchut in their practice of law, which as we know is based upon the British tradition, and it is common law and precedental law. So in that, many aspects of Din Malchut are integrated into the notion of the prime minister being the actual king of Israel. But just the elements. Let's come to the Christians. Our sort of ethnogenesis in the sense that the Christian people are an ethnos of Jesus Christ starts with the dispersion.
What do you mean here?
Dispersion, gapantwa. These people are persecuted, and they have no kingdom of their own. And their relationship with the others is built on love of God and perseverance of their martyrdom. Perseverance of what came their way. So the difficulty with the Christians came not when Constantine adopted religious freedom, and that teaches us that religious freedom is a very good thing, but when suddenly Theodosius in 380 unilaterally decided that there's only one version of Christianity that is true, and all other believers of any creed must die. His bloodthirsty aide was the Pope of Rome, Damasus. Bloodthirsty? Somebody who wants blood. No, somebody who wants aid. That's right. Okay. Yes, he was the Pope Damasus. who was very keen on exterminating the Aryans. So this is what we ended up in. From a persecuted religion to a persecuting religion through the means of the empire, which the mentality of which we retain today in Georgian Orthodoxy and the Russian Orthodoxy and all the other orthodoxies, because unlike the Orthodox world, the Catholic world had the glorious Reformation, and there was a lot of blood spilled, and we're very sorry about that. And it was wrong on both sides. And Luther and Calvin and all the Catholic proactive agents at the time, they were no perfect people by any means. But one thing they did, which the Orthodox world didn't do, well, they finally agreed upon something. Augsburg Peace Treaty, 1555, and then something that we need drastically in our part of the world, the Peace of Westphalia. But we don't have a Westphalia in this country or this part of the world. We have Moscow, and we have Tehran, and we have Ankara, and we have Beijing, but no Westphalia. So this is our development. Being Armenian, I must say something about Armenia. Armenians are not imperial. We've never been an empire. In our Christian history, all our Christian history is fighting the empire. One of the things Theodosius did is attack Armenia. That's the normative thing for any imperial power to do. You emerge and you attack Armenia. And you lose. That's the other thing. Yeah, where's Theodosius? Okay. All right, let's go to Islam because I only have 3 minutes left or about that. Okay, Islam starts off as a persecuted religion, and they make hijrah, which is kind of a movement towards another place, to Ethiopia. And the king of Ethiopia wasn't someone who's imperial. He's part of the Armenian Brotherhood. So he accepts the Muslims, and he says, you can worship freely in our lands. He wasn't able to go to the Byzantine Empire. He would have been killed, Muhammad.
Because he was killed, you mean?
No, he would have been killed. So Muhammad didn't go to Ethiopia. He went to Medina, and he established himself as the ruler of Medina because the people there were Muslim. And then once he's established himself as the ruler of Medina, he started fighting the Jews. So it's the Christians, the Christian empires, they fight the Armenians. The Muslim empires, the first thing they do, they fight the Jews. And we just think, what's wrong? But okay, right. There is a notion in Islam called Ahl al-Kitab, the people of the book. The other word for that is dhimmi, and dhimmi is the people of the contract or treaty. Yes. But a wonderful British writer has coined a perfect term for what dhimmi is. Bat Yor, she was born in Egypt, and her parents moved to Britain, and she's British. So she's calling this word dhimitude. Dhimitude. So it's dhimmi and servitude together. That's right. Yeah, servitude and dhimmi. So initially, if you were a dhimmi, you did not have to be second class or third class or fourth class. But that's what it's become. So everybody knows about the history of the Ottoman Empire, things like massacres of Christians, other believers and so forth, the Jews, and the Khilafah, the Arab Caliphate and so forth. I will not go into much detail, and we've only barely touched on one aspect, the aspect of power in relation. But my final statement is, let us go back to history. Let us assess what's been wrong. Let us retain our orthodox views, but let us be progressive and developing in order to achieve the goals of our faith, the orthodox goals of our faith. Not to abandon our faith and accept humanism as a cheap exchange for the revelation of God. The other subject that I would have talked about is money, which is very important, but we have no time for this today, and maybe I'll leave it for the next Sola next year. Okay, thank you very much.